India has made its way into the top 4 countries globally in terms of GDP, crossing the 4 trillion mark. Well, this accomplishment highlights India's strong economic and emergence as a formidable global force and power. India's constant efforts in many areas, together with strategic policies and entrepreneurial zeal, have powered this historic jump, highlighting India's status as one of the world's fastest growing major economies. In this telecast, we will be delving into this milestone achieved by India and the major contributors to this particular feat. Joining us on the show is Dr. Sharat Kohli, senior economist. Ridhima Arora, founder, Namya Foods, is also joining us on the show. Professor Madhav Nalapad, editorial director of the Sunday Guardian, with us on the program as well. Last but by no means the least, Mr. Sumit Peer, senior political commentator, also joining us on the show. Well, Professor Nalapad, it was only a matter of time that India got to this particular position, but there is a lot of sweat, hard work, planning, strategy and sacrifices that have gone into getting to this figure. Do you think from here on, the ascent towards 5 trillion, which the Prime Minister has been very vociferous and exuberant about, is going to be easier than the last trillion that India achieved?
Well, I'd like to say that the geopolitical winds are in India's favor. We have a very strong tailwind pushing us forward rather than headwind pushing us back, which has been the case for so many decades. You'll recall that China had significant tailwind pushing it forward right from the 80s onwards until about the last 10 years. Now that particular tailwind has come to India. And I'd like to say that we would have probably crossed 5 trillion by now, were it not for the fact that the Indian rupee is now not the value it was some time ago. But I think that judging by the pace of investment interest in India, judging by the number of startups that are coming up in India, and we have one of our, very successful startup entrepreneurs on this particular show, the reality is that I do believe that we will be reaching that $5 trillion mark much more easily than we reached the 3 to 4 trillion mark. And therefore, I think it's only a matter of time, and not much time, before we overtake Japan and become the third largest economy in the world. And I think that is going to be our status for some time until we slowly, begin to become the second and then finally the first.
Dr. Kohli, what do you make of this feat that India has accomplished? It's no small feat, but the fact of the matter is that over the last 10 years, there have been very calibrated strategic changes in the way we do business with the world. There have been calibrated changes in the way we want the world to see us, because if they see us in a positive light, that is when the investments start to come. Do you think that's exactly what has happened in the last decade?
Absolutely, Vineet. Without a doubt, you're spot on when you said it. The way the whole world looks at India as a country, India as an economy, I think has gone through a radical change. I mean, I travel abroad quite often, and the way, the Indians are treated, Indian businessmen, Indian professionals are treated, it is completely and radically changed. But, it's a remarkable number, I must say. We are now, 4.2, 4.4 for Japan, Germany, about $18 trillion for China, people who are interested in numbers, about $27 trillion for the US. I think now the journey to 5 trillion is looking very, very short. I mean, we don't have a lot to cover now, because it was being projected earlier, Vineet, that we would reach probably 5 trillion in 2027 or probably 2026. And I was always hopeful. In fact, just before the show, I was chatting to Professor Nalapad. I thought it's going to come much sooner. And it happened. There are two reasons, Vineet, why this has happened. If we go by the mathematics, and of course, the geopolitical economic situation as well. If we combine economics with geopolitics, there has been slowdown in Germany and Japan both, the two immediately gettable economies, the two economies which we can overtake very, very soon. So they have slowed down. Germany, in fact, a few months back was in recession. Even today, it's just about barely staying above the water. The second reason has been the boost to the Indian economy. The world GDP growth rate at this point of time, Vineet, is merely 2.9 or 2.8, the real GDP rate as far as the globe is concerned. We are at, different agencies have given different growth rates for India. Moody's, S&P, IMF, World Bank, Reserve Bank. I mean, I can list out probably a dozen of them. who've given, but there's one thing which is common in all. The numbers do vary, there's no doubt about it, because the analysis is done in different ways. The parameters are different. The data collation is different. So that's why you see 6.5, 6.8, 7, 7.5, 7.8, 7.2. But on an average, I feel, I mean, if I take the grand average of all the agencies, it comes to about 7%. So compare 2.9 to 7%. We are growing at more than double the rate of rest of the world. So that has been the second driver, that we are growing double the rate of the rest of the world. And the two economies which were supposed to be running ahead of us, Germany and Japan, they have actually slowed down. So it's like a 100 meters race going on, where the two opponents who are running ahead of you, one is you're running quicker, and they have slowed down as well. So that is what is making our journey easier. I mean, I think we should be number 3. I would say, Vineet, by the end of, or by the first quarter of 2025, we should definitely be there. Even sooner, I won't be surprised. Look at the exports: 750 to 780 billion dollars of exports, close to 590 to 600 billion dollars of foreign exchange reserves, all-time high. Tax collections, a very important parameter. 1.7 has become the new normal for GST, indirect taxes. 20% growth in direct tax collections. I mean, you count anything, and we are scoring much above rest of the world. And this is what we need, is catching the attention of the world, that what magical thing is India doing when we are able to grow. And mind you, the countries we are talking about are developed economies. So they are wondering that what magic wand has India got, where India is growing at that pace, a country of 1.42 billion people, giving 80 crore people free ration. Look at the dichotomy that we have here. If 80 crore people are getting free ration of 5 kilos a month, this means, I'm talking in a positive way. I'm not putting a critical point here. There is a very limited, I would say, quantum of economy we need, which is pushing the economy forward. Imagine if whole of the lot of 1.42 billion people, they start contributing. We've got people like Ridhima, who's sitting with me on the panel. I'm sure she's going to speak a bit later. Who are startups. We've got over 100,000 startups now. A lot of them fail as well. A lot of them don't make it to the big success. But then the quantum is so big that even if a handful of them make big, it still matters a lot. The size of our middle class is probably double the size of the American population. So I think it's the sheer numbers that are there. And I think with more and more people getting into the formal economy, more and more people getting to the territory of prosperity, if I would say, I think this pace is going to increase with time, Vineet. I have no doubt about it.
That's a good line that you used, Dr. Kohli, territory of prosperity. Sumitpir, the success and, the speed, the pace at which India has been able to articulate it, what would you attribute this to? Obviously, the government has to be given a lot of credit for that. But, the people of the country also have to support the government in this ambition. They have to support the government in this energy also, which has led to $4 trillion.
Vinay, thanks for having me on your show. It's a wonderful day and this history in making. Thanks for having us all on this panel today, because this is a very important benchmark for a country which in 2030 was considered in fragile 5. For a country wherein the NPAs were 14.5%, for a country where we have 80,000 crores of bank losses, for a country where every third asset was going into NPA, for a country we were literally written off. On November 2013, we had a food inflation of 23%. You can even Google it today and find it. So from that to where we are right now and see where the world is going, it's a phenomenal success. So what has changed? The only one thing which has changed is the government, the political view, and the vision of the Prime Minister and the corresponding policies. Look, people always want to grow. People always want to be prosperous. You, me, everybody is on the same board. But if the government doesn't give you that impetus, doesn't give you that infrastructure, if you are not able to provide clear governance, if you don't have a corruption-free government, if you're running rail gate, coal gate, chacha ji, jijaji, mamaji, helicopter gate, all those gates of the day, I can counting to till the cows come home. But when you have no corruption-free and when you have a Prime Minister who has not taken a holiday for 22 years, when you have...
So Sumit, you are also saying that corruption has been responsible for the decadence that India has faced for decades?
Of course, corruption, organized corruption and loot. You were busy orchestrating scams. Like coal scam. How did the coal scam happen? How did the CWG happen? How did the helicopter gate happen? Rail gate, these DLF allocations. So many of them scams happened. These happened in hand and glove. It's not one person doing a chori. It's an organized scam which moves from ministry to ministry and ministry to ministry. Then you get the money. So now when all this stops, where does the money go? Money goes into the economy. The intent goes into the economy. It's a very simple thing. If you have an honest prime minister, even last person on the ground will try to be honest. But if you have a dishonest prime minister and a dishonest set of ministers, then everybody say, "Yaar, main kyun na karu?" That is a common psychology, and people say, "Why should I not do it?" Now, when you have put, $350 billion in infrastructure projects, when you are announcing metro rails, when you are doing, these bullet trains, when you are building the highest number of highways in the world, when your GST collections have reached all-time high, when there is no corruption happening, when your foreign exchange reserves are increasing, when your exports are $770 billion, and next year you're going to be crossing $1 trillion. Now, when you are building these transshipment ports, when you have Bharat Mala, your Sagar Mala, what is all this doing? First, they are creating impetus. Secondly, they are creating the requisite infrastructure to support this kind of a GDP growth. So you are not interested in building scams. You are building India today. And that is why an honest businessman like Adani ji is targeted by everybody. Why are people targeting Adani? People are targeting Adani because Adani ji is a part of India's infrastructure building. So if you have to stop India's infrastructure building, target the people who have been doing this. So when this is a new India under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, wherein we are delivering beneath, and with all this global fiascos going on, with the global slowdowns going on, and what Dr. Kohli rightly said, we are somewhere averaging around 7%, by whichever book you want to go by. We are doing 7%. And today there's an important revelation which came in. Now we have around $600 billion of foreign exchange. We have a clear, transparent government. 2 days back, Japanese have claimed that the foreign exchange reserves of Chinese are around $800 to maximum $1 trillion, though China has been bragging about $3.5 trillion. That is the point of ambiguity, and that is the kind of gotala and the mix-ups you have in an economy like China. And you see how clear we are. I mean, China doesn't give its unemployment numbers today. Unemployment above 45 years of age is 56%. So with all those fiascos going, if we are doing 7%, we are doing phenomenally great.
Right.
And if you look at the foreign exchange investment which is coming is great. So what changed? It is the leadership, it is the intent, it is the corruption-free
You're
government.
absolutely right. You're absolutely right, Shobit. Ridhima, do you think that the impetus and the emphasis towards MSMEs and giving wings to the entrepreneurial spirit has also been a game changer when it comes to India's economy and India's mark towards $4 trillion?
Absolutely. I think more than the number that we are achieving right now, I think it is about getting the right levers and pulling the right levers at the right time in place. And, from a startup community, I can definitely say that, the whole idea of promoting millets, which technically means that your exports are going to, drastically move up. Encouraging more startups to actually go out and, creating an ease of business for the startups to actually go and export. These are levers that I think are only going to push people like us who are sitting in Jammu and Kashmir and, running a digital business, which is actually doing exports in 26 countries, So these are very, very small levers that have impacted at a scale that we see today. And honestly, I really don't doubt that this is only going to go better and better. And maybe we probably possibly go back to a 9.1% that we saw last year, maybe in another 1.5 years. And talking about, I think, MSMEs, I think the availability of policies and provisions to people like us, especially in the last 3 years, have drastically changed. And as Dr. Kohli was rightly saying that, in fact, whenever I travel or whenever I go out and speak to vendors, speak to people that we sell our products to internationally, I think the way people look at us has completely changed, and especially in the last 1.5 years, post-COVID. And I think these are just very, very subtle, dynamics that have changed to say that, India is changing. And I think in another 1.5 years, and we're going to be, right after US and China.
Professor Nalapat, the journey to, $5 or rather even $6 trillion, what kind of precision does India need to focus on? And how do we, become circumspect of, some things or some problems that could derail us in getting to that target?
Vineet, I'd like to say that one thing is very clear, that is leadership. Prime Minister Modi has instilled confidence in every citizen of India. that he or she can do it, can create miracles. You saw the young lady entrepreneur who's starting a startup in Jammu. I'm told there are a lot of startups taking place in Jammu, and that they're looking at global exports. No longer exports of only the local area, no longer exports only inland, but exports all over the world. And that is because of a confidence that has been given that India is a special country, Indians are a special people. And I think that is something that the leadership has been very clear about. And I think people have got inspiration from that. The second thing, of course, is policy. And, the opportunity of Cold War 2.0 for India is at least as great as the opportunity of Cold War 1.0 was for China. China grabbed that opportunity with both hands. And now you can see, under the policy fashioned by Prime Minister Modi, we are grabbing that opportunity with both hands. The Quad has been basically strengthened and brought back into activity by Shinzo Abe and Narendra Modi. You have got, for example, India. You go to a meeting, let's say, of countries, I'm not going to name particular blocks of countries, but if you go to meetings of these countries, you'll find the Indians are the only ones who speak up about the expansionist predatory policies of China. Look at the way Defense Minister Rajnath Singh has openly called out China, very, very openly. Only India does that, frankly, in its entire neighborhood. So from all these points of view, a new confidence has come, a new spirit has come, and one final thing I'd like to say, a large number of these irksome, unnecessary regulations they are put there only to collect bribes, by basically allowing you to go through the hoops. These regulations are being torn down by this particular government and this Prime Minister. So it's very important, I think the next 4 or 5 years is going to see India become the number 3 economy much earlier, as Sharath was saying, that he and I were discussing, very much earlier. And it only underlines the fact that strong leadership, moving in the right direction, is the one factor that the talented people of India need to achieve the excellence that they're capable of.
Right. Dr. Kohli, same question to you. What does India need to focus on and what not to focus on?
A very important question, Vineet, because these are the times when, complacency creeps in, sometimes, both at the top level, at people's level, at business level, at corporate level. So I think complacency needs to be kept out. That's one. There are 4 engines of economy, Vineet. I'll very quickly mention that, a point I wanted to raise, but there were other panelists, so I didn't want to drag my statement. Government spending, which is in top gear. Consumption, which is in top gear. There are 2 engines which are slightly slower right now. Export, because of the global situation. Although exports are about to hit $800 billion, but then not at the pace at which we wanted, but there's very little we can do about it because the global demand is slowed down. And the last engine is private spending. Now, private spending, when I say private, I mean the capital formation. So there has been, not the kind of pace we would have probably seen, but now that is also picking up. Having said that, we always do, a part of me also comes from the corporate world. So we always do a SWOT analysis. What is our strength? We discussed about that. But let's focus on the weaknesses. The weaknesses are, inequality of income and wealth. I think we need to bridge that gap. That this is also a cause and this is an effect. It's a cause and effect both. That's one. Second, I think we need to fight the problem of skill development, because there are corporates, when we talk of unemployment, what we forget to speak about is that I know at least 1 dozen corporates who are not able to find people. Their HR departments are going crazy. They can't find people because there's no skill there. So I think skill development, if we focus, the speed will definitely catch up. And a precursor to that is the system of education. If at class 12, after class 12, the way it happens in America, you should be prepared to take up a career and not to do a degree manufacturing courses like BA, MA, and so forth. And then you say, what do you do after this? So I think education system still needs, all the reforms have been done, but we need more reforms in education, skill development, upliftment of the other sectors of the society. Because as I said, out of 1.42 billion people, Vineet, I find that there are, I would say 10% people are contributing to the speed of growth. Imagine if this 90% also start contributing, because we should not forget that 60 to 70% of our population still is dependent on agriculture directly or indirectly. And agriculture is not a very profitable business. We all know that. We've spoken about it so many times. There are shades which are profitable, but most of it is not one of the most profitable businesses. So the moment our prime sector is brought into more profits, I think the speed of the economy will catch up, because if 60 to 70% of your overall population depends directly or indirectly on agriculture, and the contribution of that sector is merely 16 or 17% to the GDP, I think these lopsided numbers have to be brought to shame. They need to be corrected. So I think these are the areas: strength, weaknesses, opportunities are innumerable for us. Threats. Now, threat for me is the geopolitical threat. I feel the geopolitical situation is extremely volatile. We are sitting on a time bomb. I won't say it in a threatening way, but you know what is happening across the world. So I think with other things remaining constant, we are in for a huge takeoff, Vineet. And I predict here that next year when we do a debate like this, we would have been number 3 economy, Vineet, undoubtedly.
All right. Sumit Peer, how do you feel about that?
We need, 101% next year, November, same day, same time, me, Dr. Kohli, you will be 3 trillion. I have no doubt on that. I have been raising all my concerns. Koi doubt nahi hai, sir. The only challenge what we have is the geopolitical challenge. The only challenge we have is cabals who are working within the country to break the country. The cabals who are trying to disrupt the country. These are the challenges which we have to manage and be very, very careful. 2024 election is going to be decisive. If Prime Minister Modi is voted back, which he will be, then you can now, then even 10 trillion is within the range. We can give in a date and time when it will happen. But if there's some other outcome, then I don't know where the country is going to go. Geopolitical challenges are tricky, Vineet, and there's one important thing which we have to understand now. India, under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, is contributing to the sectors of the world. Okay, we are the pharmacy of the world. We are the solar energy producer of the world. We are the millet exporter of the world. We produce 40% of the food grain. We are number 4th in hydrocarbons. So if you look at all the industries we are in now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that is the stature we have to maintain. We have to increase it to 108. If you have these 108 sectors where the world needs you, that is your insurance of being a part of the world if the economy is up and down. So that is what we have to contribute. And that back home will create so many opportunities that is 80-90% of the people who are not able to contribute so much due to the lack of opportunities will be regenerated and can become contributors. That is how India will go. And it has always been, always advocating for one thing. I love startups. Startups are great. But for the government of India, it's very important to also focus on unitary entrepreneurship. Because unitary entrepreneurship can do the magic, which is like this at the minimal cost and in the shortest period of time. McKinsey says if average Indian woman living in a village starts contributing $100 to the GDP, in 2 years you will just double your GDP. Bas one thing, $100 per month, within 2 years, even nothing changes, you will double your GDP. So that is the power which we got to unleash. That is the things what we got to unleash. Vineet, let's not forget, Amul is the biggest FMCG brand of India with 72,000 crores of sales. So why can't we have 700 Amuls from 700 districts? That is what we should be talking about.
Absolutely, Sumit. We've run out of time. Would like to appreciate and thank everyone for joining us for this very important landmark historical debate and judgment. We'll take a short break here. Be right back.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.